There is no sales tax increase. There is no income tax increase. There is no business tax increase. There is no real estate tax increase. There is no cell phone tax increase. And there is no restaurant tax increase. Madam Speaker, some of us stayed up last night watching the Senate debate, and then we were fortunate enough to hear our colleagues speak today. And I rise to support this budget, but I don't do it with a lot of joy. I don't think this is a time for celebration, but what I do think it is a time for hope. Hope for the people of this state. Hope for the cities and towns who don't know what the next day brings. Hope for our children. Hope for social services. Hope for disabled populations. Hope for the elderly. That's what this budget does today. I know it may seem odd that a Republican leader is standing up supporting a budget in this regard. And this budget is not perfect by any means. I've said before, I don't think that document exists in the world, a perfect document, or for that matter, a perfect anything. Does it do everything we need it to do? No way. But this budget is a start. There are included in this budget a number of elements that will begin the upward movement of the state of Connecticut instead of the downward movement we've seen day after day. This budget includes a spending cap, a bonding cap, a revenue cap, municipal mandate reform that towns and cities beg for every day. It includes mandatory votes on union contracts, phase out of pension, Social Security, and estate. And maybe just as important as all of those things, it makes sure that our hospitals who help each and every person in this state, it makes sure that those hospitals get the funding they deserve, the funding that has been held back and treated inappropriately for several years. I'm going to be honest, I would prefer the budget that passed in September. I would prefer it wasn't vetoed by the governor, and I would prefer it was overridden by this body. That would be my first choice. But unfortunately, we live in a reality. That was not going to happen. So we had two choices after that. We either allow the draconian cuts by the executive orders to schools, to towns, to all of the people that I mentioned before. Cuts that I believe in my heart we're not going to stop for the next year. We either allow those to happen, or we go sit in a room and we torture ourselves for weeks on end. And yes, I use that word, I don't use it loosely. It was torturous. There were fights, there were happy times, but what there were mostly, guys, were compromise. And when I have heard the word in the past week used very often, you compromised, you gave in, you didn't fight. And I have to tell you, of all the issues we've had, the one thing that gets me at my core is being told that I or this caucus didn't fight. What people out there need to understand is we don't have a magic wand and can just go like this and say, this is the budget that will be the budget of the state of Connecticut. We have a Democrat governor, and we have a Democrat-controlled House in the Senate. I don't say that to be critical. I say that to put the reality out there. Sticking our heads in the sand, digging our heels in and saying, I'm taking my toys and going home, doesn't do anybody that's watching us today any good. Because that will guarantee education cuts, municipal cuts, and just as importantly, no structural change that will move this state forward. This begins the process of getting our house in order. When we talk about all those changes that we made, I have to say that the spending cap, and I'm embarrassed to say, the state of Connecticut told us to put one in place in 1992. It's 2017. We finally got that. We got all of these things in this budget because these are the things that will change the face and the trajectory of the state of Connecticut. Will it do it tomorrow? No. But I'll tell you what will happen soon. Your towns and cities, those 88 towns and cities who got zero funding under the executive order. The 54 additional towns and cities who got cut 22 to 66%. Those are the people who will see relief sooner than later. There are no tolls and there are no marijuana in this bill. And I know I have colleagues on both sides of the aisle that love those bills or hate those bills. The reason it's important it was not in this budget is because those are serious policy changes that we need to think long and hard over. We cannot do things and make major policy changes in this state just for the purpose of fixing a budget. That is no way to change policy, particularly public health policy in this state. This is a hard budget and difficult choices were made. But that's why we were sent here, to make those tough choices. And I'm proud to say we did the people's business today. I want to thank everyone in the House, legislators and staff, and nonpartisan staff for all the work they put in. We may be legislators, but we also have families and other jobs, and we had to give up a lot of that. I'm not complaining. I just want to say thank you to everybody who put their time and effort into it. And I hope we can continue in good faith in having these conversations down the road. But to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, make no mistake, we are not done, not by a long shot. I urge support.